anything about that? I'm just going to shout.
There's another one there.
Oh. Do you think it works? Okay, then. So something really fabulous happened this morning already. And it happened to you too, besides me. There wasn't anything in your email inbox. There were no texts. Nobody has asked you for money yet today. Yeah. The world is still spinning. Yes. Hallelujah. Okay. A few announcements to kick off the day. Masks are welcome but not required. If you haven't turned your cell phone down or off, please do so now. If you want to use a tea coil, turn it on now. Karla and students will take questions at the end of their presentation, and Judy Hunter and I will be coming to question askers with our microphones. If you care to make a donation for coffee and cookie, about $2 would cover our cost. And you have been wonderful, wondrous about putting away chairs, and you have additional stars in your crown for that. And please keep doing it if you can today. Okay. We are delighted to have Professor Karla Erickson and a whole group of students from the class called, I like this title, Cohabitation. I was a sociology major, and there was no class called cohabitation. So Karla is a professor of sociology at the college. She has spent much of her career following working lives of people, and then she got very interested in artificial intelligence. She's writing on a new book called Drip by Drip, Humans, AI, and Unseen Powers. And I'm going to try to not flub too badly on the names of the students who are here today to co-present with Professor Erickson. I'd love you to stand and just wave as I say your name. Jacob Cowan. Quinn Dow. Great. Sherry Ding. Tanmai Kalish. Okay. R.S. Reyes. Alex Sidler. I think I did it. Okay. Take it away, Karla. Well, yeah, but
Is that good?
try that one.
Oh, should I try this one? Oh, that's right, because it was so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this one's working too. Good morning. So happy to be back with you and back in person. And I feel excited to share these wonderful students with you and their work, but also to share you with them. I've talked to them a lot about what a role the Bucket course has played in my career. And you all helped me write my last book called How We Die Now. And you've been helping me write this one with your anecdotes. Several of you in the room are almost like research assistants in terms of how much you keep me connected. I really appreciate that, and it's a rare thing to have such a smart and curious audience who just wants to think through things. And so, when I give talks at other places, I'm often kind of disappointed by the level of engagement. So truly, I'm happy to share them with you, and this was part of what they agreed to do when they were on this research team with me, and then also happy to share you with them. So I'll get things started. I'm not going to talk very much today, but I just wanted to situate our work, and then each of the students, hi Tamai, come on in. This is Tamai. She's not presenting today, but she's going to give us notes on our presentations. You can sit up by Quinn. So she's part of our team too. So this is the last time I was here in Body. It was a noteworthy day. It was March 11th of 2020. 2 days later, Grinnell College closed for a year. And basically that Friday, the 13th, which we call Apocalyptic Friday on campus, was the day that we realized how much trouble the planet was in. So this is the group of students. Some of you were there that day. This is the group of students that came and presented at the time, and kind of were the first group that I had worked with to model what we're now doing. Back then, I was just thinking about all things artificial intelligence intelligence in robots. And so this group helped me identify that it would be even better if we could pick a couple objects to focus our collective attention on. Otherwise, it can get really overwhelming. Some of you were with me in 18 when I started my study with you remember that? Yeah, driverless trucks. That was the door I walked into. Then I found out about people like her. She's the first robot to have citizenship. So then I was like, wait, if you combine automated trucks and a robot with citizenship, we're in trouble. So then I spent a couple years trying to figure out how much trouble we were in. And many of you have been on that path with me, so thank you. Today's investigation then intentionally takes two devices through which we can understand these larger questions about artificial intelligence, artificial ontology, artificial ways of being, and human-machine relations. How, not just what they are, but much more importantly, what are we in relation to them? So these are machines that we cohabitate with. Currently, I imagine most of you recognize them. Obviously, the phone is not only one of the devices, but also is often the node. It connects a lot of things. This is the Roomba. They now have, obviously, some of you might have seen the lawnmower in town. That's a smart lawnmower. And they also have a smart snowblower, which I have to say, being from Minnesota, does sound kind of tantalizing. But this is a smart fridge, which you likely have seen or heard about. This is a smart thermostat. This is one of many home assistants. This one happens to be Alexa-driven from Amazon. And then this is the smart bed, which also studies your sleeping rhythms, your breathing, your sweat. So those are the things that we cohabitate with. One of my things that I do now when I go to visit friends I haven't seen for a while is ask them how many robots they think they're living with. And they're usually wrong by quite a... I'll be like, no, I've seen 11 already, all right? So this is the Internet of Things, often reduced to IoT. Many of you are, serious everyday readers of news. So you probably remember when the Internet of Things was spoken a lot about. And then the term kind of like, I'm saying like, maybe even, early aughts, Internet of Things was very much like a buzzword. And now it's kind of gone away, except the Internet of Things has not gone away. It's gotten louder and denser and wider. So I think we still need to talk about the Internet of Things. I know that Zuckerberg would like us to talk about Meta, but I would like to talk about the Internet of Things. So what we're going to do today is look at the home as one of the places that is wired, okay? So the Internet of Things is the networking capacity that allows information to be sent to and received from objects and devices. So think of it in all the ways that our devices are speaking to each other right now without really asking us, case by case. They're speaking to one another, they're connected to one another, and they're connected to the internet. Second, when was it born? When does the Internet of Things arise? The people who designed the internet didn't necessarily imagine this. This was like, ooh, now that we have the internet, not only people can be connected to it, but also devices, okay? Defining the Internet of Things as simply the point in time when more things or objects were connected to the internet than us, more things than objects, or things than people. That birth date would be maybe 2008 or 2009. So what we do in our class together is we meet 2 hours a week and we read stuff together and we give practice presentations and we try to sensitize ourselves to seeing the Internet of Things. And so what you're going to hear today is a series of presentations that do just that. So the home has become one of the primary ways that that an electric skin is being wrapped around our behaviors and our daily habits. This is just a quote from me saying, like, as a sociologist, we know that home is kind of the first site for most of us. It's where we learn often how to be in the world and also where we develop habit and routine. But of course, corporations would like to not only know our habits and routines, but also direct them. So home becomes a very coveted place for technologists. So today we're going to tackle these changes through case studies of two things. I just wanted to mention that I pick the two objects, and then students get to do whatever they want with those two objects. So you'll see each of the students develop a different angle of analysis on the objects that we've been studying. During the break or at the end of our time, you can come up and visit Joy for All. This is the cat, and Joy for All the dog. Quinn has it. And then these two we can't turn on right now because they're not powered up, but these are precursors to some of the things that we study. So we'll be talking to you about robopets, which some of you have lived experience with, and also smart security or doorbell systems, which some of you have experience with. So in my work, I say that I'm studying familiar devices, and what I mean by that is I'm not studying like an automatic truck or Sophia, like things that cost millions of dollars that we can't get access to. I'm talking about things that even if you don't have them, probably a nephew does, somebody that has them. They're kind of with us. So we study familiar stuff right now. These are the students that Janet did a very good job on names. You'll notice that among the students, We have a different, different scholarly trajectories, so that's been really useful in our work together. Some of these students were in my iRobot tutorial, and I wanted to give a shout out to George Drake, especially considering all of his influence in this room. He was Jacob's tutorial teacher as well. So just another person who's very much shaping what's happening, continues to shape what we're talking about today. So that's us, that's the cohabitation map team. And a previous team, the team that came and met with you in 2020, helped me revise 7 questions. So what's interesting is sociologists kind of freak out about these devices and they don't know how to address them because they're not humans and they're not organic. So a lot of sociologists just defer, I guess, to computer scientists when it comes to these devices. But given that a much greater percentage of our everyday interactions are spent with them, not with each other, as a sociologist, I want to say, like, these interactions are sociological, right? It doesn't matter that one of the entities is this cat and the other is me. These are interactions. So social scientists have to be in on the game. Religious studies folks have to be in on the game, right? Like, these are not consequences that only computer scientists should take as their territory. The way that this comes out for me a lot is I'll submit things to sociological journals and they'll be like, this isn't sociology. And I'll be like, excuse me, why is it? Because it's an interaction. So because of that, we don't really have a method. A lot of people kind of, I don't know what to do with that. I study humans, right? And so my students and I helped me develop these 7 questions. And so what these students were given was kind of a formula. Study one of these 2 devices and then use these 7 questions as a way in. So I think you'll hear some of these questions kind of in some of the strands of analysis that they present. What is the value proposition? What is promise? What we mean by that is what does the commercial tell you? What are the promises from the corporation? What skills does the machine build? And also what does it reduce? What desires does the machine reveal? So what are the underlying longings or desires? What does it free us up from and why? What are we supposed to do with the freed upness? What social conditions give rise to the machine? What is the honey on the spear inviting us to change, to swoon? With most of these devices, there's some kind of invitation that you can't disregard. For iPhones, that was the ability to just play music anywhere, right? So there's usually something that's very attractive about this device, and then there's usually some things that are annoying and not attractive, but we want to know what's the honey on the spear, what gets us to commit in the first place. And then what social changes does adoption of the machine promote? Just so you'll hear from Quinn and Sherry today about robopets, there are kind of 3 categories of robopets that we're going to be talking about. One is the very high-end robopet. This is a $6,000 Pero seal. It's used primarily in elder care facilities, primarily on memory units. You'll hear more about it. AIBO is one of the most popular robopets of all time, built by Sony in 1999. When it was released, 200,000 sold in the first 30 minutes. People love their AIBOs in really deep ways. AIBO's been heavily studied by social scientists, psychologists, sociologists, so you'll hear this come out in Quinn and Sherry's, because it was a very widely deployed device and people were very attached to it. And for some reason, which basically we still don't know why, Sony decommissioned it in 2006, so your AIBO no longer worked. So there was a mass death. And so people had collective funerals and stuff for AIBO. So you can imagine as sociologists, we're pretty interested in that phenomena, right? Okay. And then Joy for All is much more recent. I understand there are some in town. There are some at the Mayflower. So some people that probably own one of these. These are only $130, which is a very low price point for a robot. These were also distributed by the US government using tax dollars at least the tune of 100,000. So there's at least 100,000 of these deployed by the federal government by prescription for loneliness. So that matters to us as sociologists as well, okay? That something would be that a robot would be by prescription. Not optional, but by prescription. Okay, context for Nest is probably much simpler. You probably heard the most about Ring. It was for the longest time the top selling smart security device. We decided to go with Nest because it's on the rise, but also because it's owned by Google and we were interested in having several of the big tech companies represented in our work together. So I think that I'll leave it at that, yeah. And so that's the end of hearing from Karla. We're excited to give you each kind of a glimpse into a device, and just please keep track of your curiosities. It might raise some memories for you. We're interested in all those things at the end of the hour and going forward. And with that said, I'll hand things over to Sherry to get us started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sherry. Can you hear me? Okay. 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 So, hello, everyone. I'm Sherry, and I would like to begin my part of the talk with something that people may be more familiar with. Like throughout the whole semester, I did research about the AIBO. It is a robot dog which is equipped with a sense for touching, and it can also offer responses for expressing its moods. But for me, like one thing very interesting about like this kind of robot pet is that people not only simply take it as a robot, instead, like they were often considered as companion that can offer emotional and social support for their owners. For example, a content analysis of online posting in chat room for AIBO owners found out that about 42% of the participants spoke of AIBO having feeling, while 26% of them spoke of AIBO as a companion. And AIBO is not the only robot which is regarded as a reliable companion in the society. Parrot is widely used as a therapeutic animal for older people. And as you can see from the picture on the right side of the slide, its behaviors are intended to encourage nurturing behaviors among the elders, and it has an appealing face, and it can cry out for attention, and it is covered with fur that is pleasing to touch. So when I began to examine like the attributes of this robot pets, I often compare like people's relationship with it to people's connections with stuffed animals and biopets. But they're like this relationship, like they may be similar, but they are still, I think, like fundamentally different. Like to be specific, when people get in touch with like their stuffed animals, I believe like most of us do not expect any emotional responses from them. But like the robot pets, however, are able to offer more reciprocal feedbacks to their owners. Let's take Paro as an example again. Like it is a well-designed robot pet, and its sensors enable it to respond to being hit or stroked, and it can recognize if it is being held, and it can respond to certain treatment by blinking its eyes or moving its tails. And also compared to the biopaths, like the robot paths are much easier to keep. Like they do not need caretaking, and they do not need to be fed. So it broadened the scope of the animal therapy, and in some cases like the real animal therapy isn't always possible. So researchers have always exploring the uses of the robot assisted therapy in some areas where like the real animal therapy isn't accessible. So after defining what the robot pet is, I also examined its social context and people's interaction with it. I found out that compared to children or younger people, elder people are much more likely to rely on this robot pet for companionship and emotional support. There is a striking age-related difference in fixation pattern on companion robot. Like, for example, in a study aiming to examine the distinctive viewpoints of older adults on companion robots by comparing those of younger adults in South Korea, researchers found out that the elders rated the social likability and the attractiveness of the robot much higher than the younger adults. And another research finding also suggests that Paro has the potential to meet the older adults' need for social and emotional support. Uh, and some researchers also argue that some of the elders consider the robot pets as a communication tool with others. And one of my friends working at Mayflower said like some of the people there consider like the joyful all like the robot cat over here as their best friend. So probably in this month, I want to conduct an interview like with some of the people who have the robot pet at Mayflower, and I want to hear like what's their opinions about like this kind of robot pets, and why do they want to like connect, like why do they want to have that kind of emotional connections with the robot pets. But like when I research on the elders' attachment to the robot pets, like most of the researchers believe that increasing need for like social emotional support for the elders cause people's reliances on the robot pets. But when I read like the related literature about these like kind of phenomena, most of the research are like medical, and there is only a few sociological research about like this kind of topic. But as a sociology student, I believe like the phenomena we have discussed about really like denote some serious like sociological questions, like why like the elders are more likely to feel a lack of social and emotional support, and how do they search this kind of relationship in the robot pets. And when like the human companionship is in short supply, are the robot pets a really good substitute? Uh, and if like how the capitalist market may like commodify our attachment to these robot pets. The like the robot pets, there are still a lot of like sociological questions and ethical issues behind the robot pets that remain to be answered. And I want to further explore these areas because it is a great example about how like the machine life affect our human lives. Thank you guys.
Quinn, you want to come up here? And you have the choice between this one, Quinn, or the one you wear on your hair. Do you want the handheld? Is handheld mic okay?
I'm so nervous here. uh, uh, Hi, my name is Quinn. I'm uh, for the for the last semester, I've been studying the AIBO robots with Tanmai and Sherry, and in my research, I look into the way robots take care of elders and issues may arise from the care of robots. And I find really interesting how my study and Sherry's closely relates to each other, and I may offer some insight into the question she brought up at the end of her presentation. This is a really difficult area of study for me because I come from Vietnam, and where I come from, the technology of robot is not like developed, and I've never seen like a robot dog that respond to my touch. I have never seen that. Maybe that's why I have developed like an attachment to this dog, which is the school's property, but I'm still keeping it for like weeks. Uh, so, like in developed countries around the world, where progressively aging population and workforce is a trend already occurring, along with the development of robotics technology, the worry that there will not be enough young caretaker for the old generation has driven some government to introduce new health policy of using robots into elder care. Because the human rights of the elderly are to be respected as much as those of other members of society, it is important to ensure that the robot caretaker's purpose is not to reduce the care burden on the rest of society, but to benefit the elderly themselves. In Sherry's presentation, we've been introduced to Peril, the seal, and Eyeball, the robot pets, which serve only like one third of the purposes of all current elder care robots. A group of English researchers has classified the robotics caretakers to serve three different functions. First is to assist the elderly and their caretakers in daily tasks. Second is to monitor their behavior and well-being. And lastly, like as Sherry said, to provide companionship or the robot pets. Despite possible benefit, each type of them has some reasons to fear that the advent of these robots could negatively affect the life of the elderly people. Before going to each specific type, I just want to point out that the elderly are also in different states. That is, some lucky individual managed to remain mentally and physically active, but many need assistance in their daily lives, and some need like complete care due to health problems such as mobility or dementia that need specific type of robots to support. The first type of robot is the assistive robot, which was developed to feed people, uh, to to assist with some daily tasks of elder care. The Japanese second my spoon automatically feed people. Uh, and the Sanyo electric bathtub robot automatically washes and rinses people. The Riba robot has a teddy bear face and can pick up and carry human from a bed to a wheelchair. And then there's the hybrid assistive limb suit in Japan that you wear in, and it detects your like the nerve signal of movement attempt and automatically move the expected muscle. So these developments appear promising, but we cannot assume that all assistive robotic technology will be a good thing for the elderly people who encounter it. There are two main concerns about the use of assistive robot care for the elderly and its effect on their welfare. First, that it might reduce the amount of human contact that the elderly have. And the second is that if used insensitively, it could increase senior citizens' feeling of objectification and lack of control over their lives. One of the problems of aging is that often result in a loss of socialized and human contact. The worry is that the use of robots in elder care for tasks such as lifting, carrying, or even cleaning might result in a reduction in the amount of social contact that would that an elderly person experience. For example, if robots were used for tasks such as cleaning floors, this would remove a valuable opportunity for social interaction between a human cleaner and a senior citizen. Studies show that social interaction or its absence affect both the physical and psychological well-being of the elderly, that social contact has a positive influence on both aspects of aspect of them. It can be shown to reduce stress. There's another significant concern to raise in this context is the problem of objectification of the elderly and in the way in which robots carry out elder care tasks. So the question is, who controls the robots? Are they actually designed to help the elderly person or just to cut cost and reduce workload of their carers? Often the focus is more on improving the life of the caregivers rather than ensuring like the robot is provided in such a way as to improve the life of the elderly themselves. Robots is designed as replacements nurses or carer that carry out some of the same tasks of feeding, lifting, may make change they change to may make the elderly feel like objects. Such robot could make elderly feel that they've been less control over their life than when they are depend on humans. If robots were used by human carer to lift and move elderly people insensitively, the well-being of those elderly people will be likely to be reduced. The second type of robots is robots that monitor and supervise the elderly. A number of robots have been developed with the purpose of monitoring the health and safety of elderly people. A monitoring robot could increase the safety of an elderly person in their own home and make it possible for medical staff to virtually visit the elderly person and provide health checks. The, the family could also check that they were taking their medicine, feeding themselves, and so on. We have Pearl is a nurse bot that monitors and reminds seniors about the routine activities, and RP7 is a robot that is used to facilitate doctor and patient interaction without the doctor leaving the office. On the downside, we see three major concerns about the application of robot for monitoring. Firstly, is the reduction in human contact and companionship, because we can visit the elderly from remotely, so it's less likely that you will go into a cab and come to their place. So our second concern is that there's a risk that monitoring could like infringe on the right to privacy. The privacy of people in general should be respected, and there seems little reason to make an exception for the old. An elderly might not like to find that a robot peer around their apartment before they get dressed or when they're taking a bath. The issues become more complex if an elderly person mental state deteriorates further and they become confused. Like a person with Alzheimer will probably forget that the robot was monitoring them and could perform acts or say things, thinking that they're in the privacy of their own home. Like moreover, who could have the access to the information and how long it should be kept for. Uh, this like their children or family could be asked for consent of monitoring the elderly, but should they be allowed to sign away the senior right to privacy? Finally, there is a worry that loss of freedom could result from the use of robots to restrict the activity of the elderlies, because they might help preventing them from climbing to a really high stair, or they could help turn off the stove when it's on. But this also means that they have to monitor all days, like, and uh, and also when when the elderlies want to come out of their house, uh, a robot can attempt to lock the door or call the staff. So this issue here is that this could turn into the imprisonment in the home. So finally, robots as companion for the elderly. So robots could provide companionship for the elderly as like and the result from playing with or nurturing robot pets are a consequence of incre- like can lead to an increased level of oxytocin and appear to reduce stress and increase happiness. For instance, the gecko carebot is described as a new kind of companion that always stay close to them, enabling friend and family to take care from afar. Paro AIBO, like but as we discussed in other areas of robot care, is that their introduction could lead to a reduction in the amount of human contact that the elderly person experience. So at present, robots are far from being real companion. They can interact with people, even show simulate emotion, but like their conversational ability is still extremely limited, and they cannot perform adequate replacement for human love and attention. Then there are the issue of and deception that is mistaking at a conscious or unconscious level that the robot is a real animal. For an individual to benefit significantly from ownership of a robot pet, they must delude themselves regarding the real nature of their relationship with the animal. And there is a deception. There's also a deception of love, like when the elderly say "I love you" to a robot, and it say "I love you" back, with no authentic emotion, but it gives the illusion of being loved. Like although the elder can really feel the love from the robots, it's not. It's just. It's kind of a deception. So we may imagine these concerns in different contexts, whether it's ourselves in the future, or our parents, or the parents of everyone. When we think of that, really apprehensive to us because assisting, monitoring, and accompanying the elderly are what we do to our parents, relatives, old people, and what we want them to do for, like, and that is what we want them to do, like, as an act of love and care from the children. So the advent of care robots may have deprived from the elder the responsibility and care from their own children, and deprive from the son, daughters, the skill and ability to take care of their own parents, relatives. Failure to create social connection between elders and society may make the elder more attached to the robot pets, but do they know that their beloved robot pet, AIBO, specifically has memory stored in the Sony server that users have to pay monthly to keep the dog alive? Only after 3 years passed, and you have grown so much affection for it. So, if it were you, how would you feel if that? What? How do you feel if what you've grown deep affection for can be turned off by corporation? And that is the last question I have for you today. Yeah.
Thank you, Quinn. That was a perfect transition. So those are our two studies of the pets, and so we're going to take a break because this is when we usually take a break, right, Jenna? And then there will be 3 studies of the smart doorbell to follow. And you're free to come up and meet these pets. Like I said, only the furry ones move. We'll turn them on. Okay, when do we need to be back? 50. Should we do 50 after? Quarter of. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So we've heard that we need to talk slower and straight into the microphone, including myself. So that is what I am practicing right now. I'll hand things over to Alex Sidler, who's going to give us the context for the smart doorbell.
Hi, I'm Alex. So, today I'll be talking about the smart home, specifically about the smart home, how it's more anti-privacy, and really these smart security systems are putting security far over privacy. So, first, when we talk about the smart home, we need to think about what exactly a smart home is. So, what is a smart home? Well, when we ask that question, we just kind of need to look at the words. It's a smart home, so it's a home that's full of smart devices. We talked about the Internet of Things a little bit earlier with Karla's presentation, and that is definitely the main idea behind it, is that we have a bunch of devices here, such as Alexa and some other devices, and then on the far right we have Google Home and the hub, and then at the top right we have a smart light bulb next to a smart TV, and there's a bunch of other smart devices such as the smart thermostat, as discussed earlier, and also a smart bed, which I didn't even know about. The smart homes also have a smart security system with them, which is going to be the main smart device that I'm talking about today, specifically the Google Nest smart doorbell and smart security camera. So there are 2 main brands here when it comes to security systems. We have the Google Nest and the Amazon Ring. The Amazon Ring is more popular, and it might be the one that is most well known, just because it's cheaper. So with these devices, you can, the Google Nest doorbell acts a lot like a doorbell. Basically, it's a doorbell with a camera on it, where when someone arrives at the door, it can send you a notification through the Google Hub or through your phone, an app on your phone. So you can check who's at the door. You can check for packages. You can speak with visitors through the hub or through your phone. And it also comes with some facial recognition software. So you are able to see exactly who is at the door if you have their face in the system. So Google likes to tout specifically the security provided by the smart doorbell and also by the security camera. And it describes it as an all-in-one security system that lets you check in from anywhere. The Nest helps you ensure that your home is covered with ease. However, what we'll see is that the Google Nest, as well as virtual assistants such as Amazon Alexa, which is the most famous one, but also Google's Hub can act as a virtual assistant. We see that really these security systems and assistants are data mining us. So they are sort of like a secret spy that we invite into our own home under the guise of security, because we have a long, long list of things here that they can track that I'll get into a little later. But basically, when you buy a smart home security system, a lot of times you're giving companies like Amazon and Google ways to track different information about your life. Hold on, though. We need to talk more about what data is and how it works. So, who here uses Facebook? Can I get any raise of hands? Nice. So, if you have a Facebook account, Facebook is tracking everything that it can about you, including any posts you make, any comments you make, anything on your camera if you have Facebook on your phone, messages you send and receive, who you send and receive those messages to and from, your activity in other apps or other websites if you're on a computer, including also purchases you make and any credit card information it can get, and then even real-life information, real-life identifiers we call them, such as your name, your friends, followers, family, and any other connections, groups and communities you're a part of, your location, the information of your device, what device you're using it on, any demographics such as education, level, age, socioeconomic status, income, religion, and also license plates, face biometrics, addresses. Facebook collects everything, basically. And so here are also some just statistics about Facebook. Facebook actually collects over 5 petabytes of data per day, which if you don't know how large that is, neither do I. But it's really, really large. However, we see that it's not just Facebook doing this. Other companies such as Google and Amazon also collect Facebook. Google is actually the leading collector, or collect data, not collecting Facebook, but Google is the leader in data collection, mostly due to it running the world's most popular search engine, Google, but also definitely due to other products that it has, such as the security system. And so when we think about how much data Facebook mines just by itself, and then Google mines just from being a search engine, we think, well, these are just websites, right? How much data could they get just from like being online? It's a good thing that there's no technology out there that will let them into our lives. And so we ask ourselves, too, what do they do with the data? So specifically, Google most of the time uses it, but also Facebook. They use it to build algorithms, which, going back to Karla's presentation, is what lets them interact with us and with our habits and with our sort of mental state, and more connect with us to try and get the most out of us as consumers, or as products, or as ways to collect data. And also, there is a kind of secret data market that's going on, where basically the companies collect data, such as, again, like names, addresses, and then they sell it to other third parties for profit, which is a little scary to think about. But again, you know, how much data can they really get? These companies are restricted to online activity. There's no product that can let them look at us all the time. Oh no. So we're already seeing examples of security systems maintaining the data they collect, such as audio, such as video, and other things. We've seen several examples of this. For example, in 2022 alone, Amazon handed Ring video doorbell footage over to law enforcement without the owner's permissions over 11 times. Also, Google has been known to hand over information to the government and law enforcement through something called keyword warrants, which is essentially where they can track what people search, and also use footage taken from security cameras to find possible suspects for legal reasons. And then also, Google, according to, well, security.org, Google also shares your data with a bunch of third parties like advertisers, publishers, and developers for data analysis. And then the one-way mirror, which is a name that we saw earlier, too, explains that Amazon and Google have both allowed employees to listen to audio recorded by their in-home listening devices, Alexa and Home. So there are real people going through audio and video data taken from real security systems in people's houses. So basically, in short, companies like Amazon and Google are really collecting data through their security cameras, through their doorbells, through their virtual assistants, and are not afraid to put the data to use in various ways, either through their own purposes for algorithms or for profit, or also to hand it over to other parties like law enforcement, like data analyzers, and things like that. So in this context, we kind of see that really these security systems act as a Trojan horse, where we invite these new smart systems into our home to make us feel secure. We invite them into the intimacy of our homes to try to make it better, to try to make it smart. But really, in disguise, they carry a secret surveillance spy that is watching a lot of times, or listening, and is very good at facilitating exploitation by these large tech companies. So the more commonplace security systems become, the less private our daily lives are as people, as consumers, and more of our most sacred places can be data mined by exploitive businesses, especially in America too. We do not have privacy laws that are up to standard, that are up to even privacy laws in Europe, but even Europe doesn't have very many data protection laws or new legislation to try and improve the protection from big tech companies and from tech products. So we definitely need to start improving our own privacy measures and put in place some kind of safeguards against this kind of exploitation, against this kind of privacy invasion from big tech companies. But one giant hurdle over this is that at the same time, young people feel more and more apathetic towards this kind of privacy invasion, where even though a lot of people know that they're being data mined, know that their phone is tracking them wherever they go, they just don't seem to really care. And so this is a not so subtle segue to the next section. No? Oh yeah, Jacob's up next. Sorry. Although that's problematic because the next slide is telling me otherwise. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So Jacob is going to go next, and then Eris is going to pick up the question of should we care at the end. So here's Jacob.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Jacob. So before we get started, I'm going to zoom back in to the smart home specifically, talk a little bit less about privacy and about security. But I just want everybody to take 30 seconds, take a minute, think about what you value in a home, what you appreciate about your home or a home that you've had in the past, physically and psychologically. Okay, so I ask that you keep that with you as we go throughout our presentation. A lot of what Alex talked about is really scary, but it's important to ground ourselves in why it's scary, right? So when we started this project, when we started talking as a group, I was like, wow, I can't believe Google is coming up with all of these ideas. A lot of the media is talking about the age of the smart home. It's talking about, oh, we're almost going to achieve a smart home. We're almost there. The technology is being developed. I was like, wow, Google and Amazon are really smart. But it turns out that a lot of what they're doing is just updating technology. They're not coming up with a lot of it. So so we have to be careful allowing Google and allowing Amazon and allowing other smart home companies to claim their ingenuity, right? What we see here on the right is Google Nest, the temperature controller thing, which is awesome. It looks really cool. It's black in a circle, and it has a cool little green leaf on it, and also it's controlling the temperature in our home. And on the left, or nope, that's the right. On the right, we have a Ring doorbell that has a camera, and it's also a doorbell, which, you could also knock. So there are, we just have to be careful about what we're allowing them to do. So my motivation for this, thinking about, learning all this stuff, thinking about what do I want my project to be, there were a couple quotes from some of the things that we've read that really called out to me and sort of made me realize, home is a very special place. I'm from New York City. Iowa's very different. I love it here, but also, what is it that makes this place special that I like New York for? So this first quote, it is in the nature of human attachment that every journey and expulsion sets into motion the search for home. There is a universally shared ache to return to the place we left behind or to found a new home in which our hopes for the future can nest and grow. And this second quote, the action of living in a house does not only mean being there at certain times of the day, but also means routinely traveling through its places, using its space and objects that come to life in that space to satisfy one's needs, right? So those are good reminders, and then also all of the reasons that we came up with when we're just thinking about what does my home mean to me. So, in fact, these modern companies didn't come up with the idea of a smart home at all. This is a clip from a video Westinghouse created this idea in the mid-1950s. of what a smart home could look like. So I'm just going to, this is just a video of one of the things that was important to them in their conceptualization of a smart home.
The pride and joy of the man of the house is the weather control center, a center that puts you in charge of the electric heating and air conditioning and the electronic air filtering of the entire house. If you like, the temperature of each room in the total electric home can be set individually. And for the amateur weatherman, the control center reports outside wind velocity and direction, outside temperature and humidity, and barometric pressure.
So that was almost 70 years ago. Really cool. It's awesome to be able to control the temperature in your house. And also, I think that's what Google is doing. So some of the other things that are mentioned as cool technologies in this, there's an automatic laundry doer, which is pretty cool. I would like that. And then also there are lights that turn on as you walk up to your house. And there's a camera in front of your house that shows who's at the front door when someone knocks, right? So really cool stuff, very convenient, but not something that Google or Amazon is coming up with. This is a video that all of us in our group found kind of funny. This is a YouTuber with almost 500,000 subscribers. His channel is called like Tech with Brett or something like that. So he explains technology to people. He gave like a 25-minute tour of his smart home that he's created in his house with his family, and this is one of the things that he really likes about it.
Other things. Next over here, this is a new device. This is a smart faucet by Moen. So this is really cool. A lot of people are like, well, why do you need a smart faucet? Well, you can ask Google to give you 2 cups of water. It will instantly give you 2 cups of water. Ask Moen to fill water bottle.
Okay, here's Moen. Dispensing 50.7 ounces now from kitchen faucet.
And so previously, I set up my water bottle in the app to tell it exactly how much water I need for this, and then it will go until it fills it up. You can also set presets on temperature and certain things like that, and then you just wave your hand over the sensor on top for it to dispense the water. And so there, it turned off without me having to touch or do anything. It was automatically able to dispense the water, and it was the perfect amount. The sensor right here, I can just wave and easily turn on.
So another thing that this guy is really impressed by is that his shades automatically go up and down, which he says gives him more time to hang out with his kids. So, you know, that's great. I'm glad he gets to hang out with his kids more. So this is sort of just making fun of them a little bit, but I think it's important to note, right? Like smart homes, they're this really cool, pretty scary thing that these companies are developing, and also it's a smart faucet that's saving you from having to turn on the water. So are they even really that smart? This
other things. Next over here.
We could watch it again, but so this is a video. This is a USA Today video from 2019. It's a tech contributor giving a tour of a smart home of the future, which, if you will remember, that's also what that video from the 1950s was. So we're going to just check out one of the things that she was really impressed by.
So just off the kitchen, there's a home office, and then you pull a little lever here. Check this out. The wall unfolds all transformer-like into a bed. And you know what the most amazing part of this whole thing is? Watch this. When we go to pull it back up, this is nothing short of amazing. Right here, it didn't even spill our water.
So, yeah, I don't know where we've seen that idea before.
So just off the kitchen.
Oh, wait, it was invented in 1900. So we've seen that instead of, and you know, that bed looks a lot different than that bed, to be fair. But I think we can see that the creation of these technologies, which Google and Amazon are really proud of, and you know, I don't think that was a Google bed, but whatever company made that one, it's not their ideas. They're just updating it, right? They're making it a little cooler. They're designing it a little bit sleeker and more modern. But so let's recognize that and let's hold them accountable to that. But let's I don't know. But let's just take it from Google, right? So this is a Google Nest commercial. It's about 1.5 minutes long. And just refocus on what it is that you find value in your home as we watch this.
Hold on to me as we roll down this unfamiliar road. Although this weight is stringing us along, no, you're not alone. I'm gonna make this place. Trouble, it might drag you down. You get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone. So I'm gonna make this place your home.
So when I watched that for the first time, I was like, wow, Google's doing something right. You know, I like home because it's where I can hang out with the people who I love. I can feel joy there. I can cry there. I can eat food there. I can laugh there. I can play with my dog. But it turns out that you don't actually really need Google to do any of that stuff. You know, I actually forgot while I was watching that it was a Google commercial. It's pretty hard to notice the Google Nest devices in that commercial. There are only a couple of them. So, again, none of this needs Google. And honestly, that's not very surprising, right? We as humans have been living in homes, living with the people we love for a really, really long time. We figured out how to do the things that are important to us in our homes without the presence of technology. For a long time, we figured out how to do the things that we need to do, the cooking, the cleaning, the sleeping, efficiently and well, and we don't need Google for that. So even though, you know, as we saw in their slogan at the end, Google is making a home a nest, they're claiming that they're innovating our experience at home, right? But really, as we saw with all these technologies, they're just updating, right? And I say this because I don't want any of us to hold ourselves above Google, right? They're powerful, they're rich, they're scary. But instead, I say this because I think it's important to maintain the skepticism as we interact with their really well done commercials, with their really well designed temperature controls, or their beds, or their cameras, or the web page where we search for things, right? So we need to strip the marketing, we need to strip the design, we need to strip down all of this updating to see what Google is really doing. And when at the end of the day we can see that what they want is to be part of our experience at home without offering anything new, and instead scaring us with, as what Alex talked about, all of the privacy that they're stripping us of, we need to hold Google accountable to that. And we can't let them trick us into believing their marketing, into feeling all the feelings for this commercial that we feel for our own home, but we have felt for our own home without the presence of technology for so long. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Jacob. Last but certainly not least, Eris Reyes will bring us up to speed with questions about reaction and attitudes towards tech.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going. Hello, everyone. How's it going? My name's Eris. I am also a fellow Grinnell student. Yeah, so I'm just going to hear to... Oh, sorry. Can y'all... Is this better? Okay, cool. All right, so I'm just going to start just by talking a little bit about myself, right? I think I come from a different place than my fellow classmates. I love technology. Like, I love it, right? I love all the little gadgets you can buy. Like, this summer, me and my stepdad, we bought a new grill that has an app that connects to it that could tell you, like, how the smoker's doing and everything. I love this stuff, right? Just on me right now, I have my phone, right? I have my AirPods. I have my Apple Watch. I have my wallet, which has an AirTag on it to track my wallet for me if I lose it, right? I'm, like, very connected, okay? In my phone, I have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Amazon, like, everything you could think of, right? So I'm very well connected, so I love this stuff. So when I came in here, we've been talking for about 2 months now we've been talking for 2 months now about all these kind of things, right? Data privacy and surveillance and, everything that we've been talking about today. And I was, like, really into it, and I was like, you know what, this is obviously terrible. This is bad. They're taking my money. They're taking my information. I don't know what they're doing with it. And after about 2 months, I came back to our meeting one day, and I was like, you know what? Why should I care? Like, I love this stuff. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, what can I do about it? I'm not Google. I'm not Amazon. I don't have access to capital. I don't have access to this kind of stuff. So what can I really do about this, right? Like, why should I care about everything? And so, sorry. So then I thought, like, am I the only one that feels this way? Am I the only one that just doesn't care, right? Because I'm sure if you ask many fellow students at my school about this information, they all know, but they don't really seem to care very much. So I did some digging, and I found that roughly 6 in 10 Americans do believe that it's not possible to go throughout their daily life without getting tracked by something, right? So we're all very well aware, and we also know the government's doing it as well. And it's pretty much the same. About 62 and 63% people believe the government and companies are constantly tracking us. And what also I found was that above almost 65% of Americans also believe that they don't believe that companies admit mistakes and when they misuse users' data. They also don't believe that the government will hold the companies accountable. They don't believe that their data will be used in ways they feel comfortable with. And they also don't believe that the companies will promptly notify you if they misuse your data. So we're all very well aware of that the companies don't care about us, that they're using our data. We know that they're tracking us constantly. And so I thought, don't you think the more we know, the less we use, right? Wrong. So what I learned was that the amount of people who join the internet actually, like, keeps growing every year. So the more information we're actually getting, the more we actually join the internet. So, and this doesn't even include past 2019, when everyone really got connected after COVID. Everyone really joined on. They wanted their kids on their families, right? Everyone needed to go to school on the internet. So I'm sure that's actually, like, probably quadrupled after 2019. And so I started to think, what could I use to describe what's happening? Why do we know this is happening and nothing's changing? And so I thought of this term called active passivity. I thought, well, we're all being very passive to this situation, right? We know it's happening. We're like, whatever, who cares, right? But we're actively being passive about it. Because when I ask people, they're like, yeah, that sucks. But, like, why are you making a big deal about it? Who cares? I love going on Twitter. I love using Instagram. I love watching YouTube, right? Why am I going to stop that and take that away from me, right? Regardless of what they're tracking, they're giving me what I want, right? The amount of things I've bought that I love from Amazon telling me through sponsored ads, right? But so I looked up this term because I didn't know if it was a thing. I just kind of thought it up, and I was like, let me look into it, see if this is even, does this exist? Is this a common thing used? And I found that it's actually often used by psychologists to describe the tendency to approach life's problems helplessly. So it's often used in, like, for therapeutical senses, and they kind of get the idea when they're talking with people and they try to solve this problem for people. And so It's also considered a dialectical dilemma, which means when someone is stuck at an extreme, that they just tend to shut down and they don't actually try to solve the problem, and they kind of go into this dysfunction. And it's often associated with trauma survivors and people with bipolar disorders and personality disorders. And obviously, I'm not saying we all have personality disorders, but I think that there is something to say about the impact that technology is probably having on people, and knowing this information. And how are you supposed to feel bad if everything you're seeing on social media is bad? This is just one more picture in the feed, right? I think it's this constant just pressure that is not necessarily trauma, but it's obviously making an impact on people, and it's causing people to just kind of shut down and not care. And I think that's what happened with me as well. Even with the amount of information I've gathered after this. Yeah. So I ask if you all can ask yourself a question. I know this is not very accessible. But it says, do you feel as if you and or your family participate in active passivity towards technology? I mean, I'm sure you all have sat here today. Are you just going to go back on Facebook tomorrow is my question, right? You're going to go post a picture or something, right? But yeah.
Thank you. So that is the end of us. I'm going to put up one more question. Sorry about that slide color. That was all me, not Eris. So this is the way we were thinking about. We were really interested. Can you believe that these students came up with all this in the last 8 weeks? Round of applause. I always say I'm a lucky teacher to work with such wonderful young minds and people. So these are some of the questions we had to turn it out to you. It's very helpful to us. Anecdotes, observations, connections that it brings to mind for you. Precursors, we're very interested in precursors or what you've been thinking about or noting. So please, we're going to spend the rest of the time with questions. We've got 10, 12 minutes. And you don't have to remember every student's name. So if you have a question about one of the pets, cool. If you have a question about security or a more general observation. Do you want one of these now, Janet?
No, we've got Judy and I have the mics, and we're happy to bring them to somebody who has a question or observation.
Yes. Is there an app out there that would send false information to Amazon or them? When you go to click on a website, it would feed it terabytes of misinformation?
So there's not that I know of any app or website that lets you give misinformation. I do know that there's certain browsers, which would be like Internet Explorer. There are certain browsers that let you sort of evade like the ways that they gather information by using cookies and stuff like that. The problem with that is, and the browser I'm thinking of is specifically the Tor browser. The difficulty with that is that if you download the Tor browser, then you will be put on a government watch list.
Always a downside.
So, and we do have a graduate. He didn't work with me. He did this independently. But we have a graduate of the class of 22 that has made himself an expert on avoiding surveillance capitalism. So if anybody wants his guide, I can send it to you. It's like a 10-page guide. It's really nice. But Alex is totally right. There, evasion is very difficult. That was a great example.
Hi, can I avoid anything by going to DuckDuckGo?
Absolutely, yeah. So DuckDuckGo limits the ways you're being surveilled. I mean, it's a significant reduction. Yeah, that would definitely be on the list. Yeah. But Eris has more things to say about DuckDuckGo.
Just the only other thing to note is that DuckDuckGo does have a contract with Microsoft, so they will likely get information from you. Maybe not as much, but they're still taking things from you.
This isn't a question, but just kind of a comment that Even though the last speaker really loved technology, it was comforting to see he still used 3x5 note cards.
So we know we ended on home and security, but we're also interested in what you think about the relationship to the pets and companionship.
Karla, has anybody come across any studies that compare the relative value or worth of robots versus support animals, live support animals? Is there a significant difference, or can anybody speak to that?
Yeah, Sherry and Quinn are both pretty deep into this literature. I think Tom I is too. So do you want to, between a pet and a robo?
Yeah, like, oh yeah, sure. Like as I like talk about like before, like the biopaths, like they do not like they require like the caretaking and they need to be fed. So, but like the robopets, you do not need to like feed it and you do not need to take care of it. So it is definitely more convenient. And I cannot think of like probably like people may prefer like the real animal because probably like they look cuter. But like based on my research, it seems that I don't think like people really care about like the appearances about the animals that much. Like all they care is about like the reciprocal relationship between like the humans and the robots, like the robot pets, and how like the robot pets can respond to like their treatment. So like and also talk about like in some areas like the real animals are not always accessible. Like for example, like in hospital, like if like if a person wants to like have a companion, it is definitely like more appropriate to have a robot pet than having a biopet. Yeah.
I've got something. They don't disobey. Think about that. My dog only disobeys mainly. And then also, like dormitories, right? Like we talked a lot about elder care because that's where most of the studies are at. But imagine how, like the students aren't allowed to have dogs or cats. So we've been passing this around over the last few weeks and doing little study groups with our pets and stuff. Some people have a real uncanny valley, like shutter effect to the cat and the dog, and others don't. We brought it into classrooms and dormitories, so we've been doing small scale experiments with that. Here's Tom.
Also, there was one paper that I read which compared like pain rating for elderly patients with when they had a real bio dog support animal versus like a robot, and they saw that the reduction in pain rating was very similar. So
yeah, I mean, I think so Tom and I just said like the pain management was similar. The body believes, so the body expresses like oxytocin and stuff like that as if it was reciprocal. Quinn?
I think one important difference between the bio dog and the robot dog is that the robot dog don't really die. So like death is they don't really die. Like robots dog don't really die. Instead, like I said in my speech, like Sony for the AIBO dog requires you to pay monthly subscription in order to preserve the memories of the dog after like 3 years you have been attached to it. And this like put the power into your hand to keep what you love alive, which you cannot do to a bio dog.
So it's not, as Quinn's saying so well, this was one of the questions that started your investigation, right? Was that for a while, Sony, it came with support from the platform, so memories you were building with your dog belonged to you automatically, but then you had to subscribe to them starting in the 3rd year, presumably because you had built the affection. So then at that point, the company actually owns your affectionate relationship, and you have to rent it from them. So this led Quinn to think deeply about some of the things that she brought up, but just about that, not some kind of abstract commercialization of affection, but actual, I own your affection. If you want access to this thing, it's dead. It won't do anything unless you pay me to keep it alive for you. So these questions of ontology have been haunting Quinn from the beginning, and she found her way in with her presentation.
I think that wraps it up. Let's give them another round of applause, please. And in a means of thanking this group, we will purchase a book from the Joanne Bunge and Art Hyman Book Fund, and it'll be a part of the library collection, so thank you all very much. Sadly, end of bucket course for this semester. Originally there was another speaker planned, but that person had to cancel. So goodbye and have a, but not yet, not goodbye right this minute, but after today, goodbye until January sometime when we get the schedule organized. We'll let you know through the various channels. I wonder if everybody who is on the bucket committee course would step forward, stand up, and so they can be applauded for their work during the course. There we go. And we've also been assisted by Steve Lovig and Scott Gruen providing refreshments for us from the Mayflower. Did I cover it, Judy and group? Keep helping with chairs just one last time if you can. Thanks very much, and see you in